Welcome to the first episode of Loops and Arrays. My name is Mariko. I'm Kosamari on the internet, pretty much everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, and Lavery, although I don't have much active profile on Lavery. I recently did a Twitter poll asking if I should start knitting YouTube show or / podcast or not, and 133 of you voted and 89% said yes. So about more than 100 people said yes, so I'm giving a try. If you don't know what knitting show is, it's usually like weekly or bi-weekly video where they talk about like the project that they're working on, the finished objects, and acquisitions that they, like yarns and notions that they bought. I don't know if I can do this weekly. However, I recently went to business trip to London and Tokyo, and I bought quite a bit of yarns. I mean, from here to here is London purchase, and then from here to up there is Tokyo purchase. So if anything, I have a few weeks worth of stuff to talk about. So I'm gonna give it a try. So let's start with finished object, and I have two things to talk about. The first is this sweater that I am wearing. The pattern is Doll from Spice collection from Quince & Co. company. I think it's designed by, let's see, Leo B. Siebold, I think, Miss Cleaver on Lavery. It's a very simple cable and basket weave pattern, raglan sleeve, bottom up to knit from bottom up sweater. I actually bought this yarn at Loop in London, and my business trip was 2 weeks in London, and I finished it when, like, I bought a yarn, started knitting it, and I finished while I was in London. I actually took like 9 days to make this sweater. So the yarn I used is a British yarn called Triskelion yarn, and let's see if it focuses. Yep, it's Allen weight, colorway Beacon, and this is 75% blue face Leicester, 25% Masham. I don't know what that is, but I assume it's the kind of sheep. It's 100% British fiber, British spound, and I assume it's dyed in UK too. So yeah, I visited Loop in London, and I wanted some like unique, like, you know, I went to a yarn store in London, so I wanted a UK unique yarn, and this is the one I found. In terms of pattern, it looks intricate. I mean, this basket weave pattern happens to like a whole entire panel and side and back, but these cables are very simple. It's just a, I think, 3x3 cloth or something like that. And this basket weave pattern, it looks intricate, but it's actually 2x2 rib, but like stacked in a way that creates a basket weave. So it was very simple and intuitive. There's a little bit of side waist shaping here, so it's the sweater goes inwards a little bit and then go upwards. But other than that, you know, very simple sweater pattern. Because it was Allen weight, it knitted up very fast. I mean, I remember sitting in like a cafe in London and finishing this one sleeve within like 2 hours or something. It's very quick to knit. The pattern is originally developed for Quince & Co. Lark yarn, and this yarn that I bought in Loop is a little thicker. The gauge was little like looser when I gauge swatched it. So what I did was I took few stitches off of the side panel so that even though the number of stitches that I cast on is less, I end up with a same finished measurement. So that's one. It took me a 6 skein of this yarn. I bought, like, leading the yardage on pattern, I bought 9 skeins, and I actually returned the 2 that I didn't use. However, here's leftover yarn, and it's almost 100 grams. So I could have made it with 6 skeins, I guess, and they turned it 3, but there's a reason I have lots of tiny small balls. One of the skeins, when I was winding it, had 3 knots, and it's really annoying, but ended up being a few smaller balls. And I was like, if I ran out of yarn at somewhere, I would use those smaller one, but I ended up not using it, so almost have like 1 full skein left. I don't know what to do with it. Maybe like cowl or something. Need to think about what to do. Another finished object is also the purchase from Loop in London. Is this cowl that I knit out of let me see, I wrote it down. Lax Adora Knit Fun Size Bundle. It's a pattern Lila cowl that came with the yarn. So I will insert the photo of this yarn, but it's a collection of mini skeins, and I think, how many colors? Like 8 colors. So it's like nicely bladed 8 tiny skeins, and I just could not resist buying it. It was so cute, and it's 100% cashmere, so it's very soft. One modification I did for the pattern is original pattern calls for 3 repeats of these chevrons, but I changed it to 4 because I wanted like a taller and like a less wider loop of a cowl. So let me put it up. It's like if I put a monotone color like this, it looks like kind of like very gray and very New York. But then I can also put it in this side and have like some color around my neck, and I really like it. So those are 2 finished objects, but I have a half object. So after visiting London and Tokyo, I also went on a business trip to San Francisco, where I was attending a 4-day meeting for 3 days. For those of you curious, I attended TC39 meeting, which is a ECMA script, the JavaScript standards body. So for 3 days, I listened to discussion about how the JavaScript syntax should be. But the first day I attended, the discussions on those meetings are very intense, and it's so easy to zone out and just like went on like reading emails or writing, like making PR or like writing code or of that matter, and just like completely lose track of the discussion. But I do want to listen to those discussions and like learn, because it's so much interesting details into designing a programming language, and I want to focus instead of reading Twitter or reading email. So first day I was like, first day I didn't bring my yarn or knitting project because I was working on a kind of like a huge blanket size shawl that I will show in a moment. And I just didn't want to bring those projects into this like tiny, like a meeting, a conference room where like you have only like, your own personal space, like this much personal space, and just sitting next to other people. So I was like, I need some vanilla sock or some simple knitting that I can just do while listening to the meetings. I went to yarn store the first day. I bought a sock yarn, and for the second day and third day, I knit socks, the vanilla socks. So here's the half object that I have, and I almost have a half of the second sock too. I'm almost ready to start knitting the heel flap, so this will be done in no time. The yarn is Madeline Tosh sock. Colorway is Viola, I think. Now, when I originally bought this, it looked like this. In skein, let's focus. There you go. In skein, it looked like this, and I couldn't really see if how it's gonna knit up. if it's gonna variegate it or if it's gonna pull. But I really like the color of green and pink and brown, and it like almost felt like a little like Christmas-ish. So I chose this yarn. I did not expect to pull like this. It's kind of interesting. So this sock kind of like spiral entire way down, and this half started spiraling the same direction, but then it went to the other direction and now starting to spiral that way. So I don't know, kind of interesting. So I went to Imagine Knit in San Francisco to buy this yarn. I originally chose different yarn, which I think I have it somewhere. Oh, there you go. I have it here. So when I went to yarn store to buy this sock yarn for vanilla socks knitting at Knitting, this is the original skein that I chose. It has a gold stellina in it, and this is from Anzula Luxury Fiber Fingering Sock. I think Nebula is the base name, and the colorway is saffron. So this is mix of superwash merino and 16% sparkling stellina. I was basically pretty much in the mind of like holiday themed sock knitting, so I thought this was pretty like sparkly and yellow and nice holiday. However, when I went to check out, there was a basket of like sale item, and I found this one, and I was like, let me get this too. I mean, it's Madeline Tosh sock, and it was like $5 off or something like that. And I decided to cast on this one first. So this one has to be another sock. Because it's like sparkly, I'm almost thinking making it to like a neck warmer or arm warmer, something like more like that peeks out of my boot. I don't know. So those are two yarn purchases I did. So let's talk about work in progress. So besides the half socks that I've been working on this week, I have one project that I've been working on, which is my blanket size shawl, DK weight shawl. So I guess I should show the pattern. So the pattern is from latest Pom Pom magazine, and it's this design by Julie Duplex. I think Julie Knits in Palace on Instagram. And this Stellate Shawl, which is a DK weight, huge blanket size shawl with slip stitch and brioche. I was thinking of knitting a like shawl slash blanket that I can just basically like the one that entirely covers my shoulder and back, and I was into like 2-color brioche stripe kind of theme. So I basically searched on Ravelry shawl blanket DK weight. I don't know if I specified brioche. I think I specified brioche, and this pattern came up before it was released. So when I saw the pattern on Ravelry, I was like, this is cute. I don't know why people are not knitting these. Like there was only like 2 projects from designer herself. And I was like, why? This is amazing. And turns out the pattern was not released. So I bought yarn from Downtown Yarn in New York, Lower East Side in New York. And I was like, I can see how this is kind of constructed, and I can see how to like kind of recreate my own pattern from looking at photos, and I really want to cast on something now. Do I wait until Pom Pom magazine is released, or do I just like make up my own pattern? And you know, while I was debating those, Pom Pom released a new issue, so problem solved. I have so far, this is like a 2 weeks worth of knitting. It's really hard to fit into the screen, but basically the shawl is divided into 5 sections, and I finished 3 sections in 2 weeks and 2 more sections to go. So I don't know, maybe before Christmas I will finish this. In terms of yarn, the color A, the slip stitch blue color, is this yarn from Malboligo. It's their Leo space, and the colorway is Azules, I guess. It's like a beautiful tonal blue. Focus. There you go. Tonal blue. And I love how it creates kind of like a different version of blue in each slip stitches. I really like it. And the base color, the color B, is this skein of yarn. It's actually from Madeline Tosh. They are Tosh DK, and colorway is Smokestack. So yeah, 2 colors. The base is basically garter stitch, so it's very squashy, and I can already see this is going to block out huge once it's done. So that's one work in progress. So let's talk about acquisitions, and I think I'm going to split my recent acquisition to 2 episodes. As I mentioned beginning of the episode, I went to London and Tokyo, and I did quite a bit of shopping in both cities. So I have a lot to talk about. So in this first episode, I'm going to talk about what I bought in London, and then maybe next week I can talk about what I bought in Tokyo and Kyoto. So while in London, I visited 3 yarn shops, and I also went down to Brighton and went to another yarn shop. So there were 4 yarn shops in total, and at each of them I bought something. So the first one I went to is WIP London. As I talked about, I bought this yarn and I bought this yarn. So the first time I was there, those are the 2 that I bought. And I went back because I finished my project and I had 2 skeins left. Of course, when you go back, you have to buy more. Doesn't have to, but I wanted to buy more. So the second time I went to WIP, I kind of bought a souvenir pieces. So here's the 3 skeins of the uncommon thread that I bought. So I asked a store lady what would be a good like souvenir, very British yarn to bring home, and she said uncommon thread is very popular. So this is their sock vase. I don't know what if they actually have a sock name. Oh, so it's the uncommon thread tough sock is the base name. 80% superwash BFL and 20% nylon. And I just chose these 3 colors. I'm not sure if I'm going to make socks or if I'm turn these 3 into some kind of like shawl or something. I don't know. I just picked the color that I really liked, and the 3 colors that went well together. So I was like, well, I'll just buy those for souvenirs. So those are yarn purchase from WIP. And then I also bought this project bag that has a sheep embroidery on it. And this is by Poppy Treffley, I guess, handmade in England. What I like about this project bag is a zipper. So I don't know if it's gonna focus, but the zipper is very chunky to plastic zipper. So when you have yarn in it and pulling yarn out, like I was doing for this socks, it doesn't get caught when I'm pulling it. I don't know if it's gonna focus. So yeah, it doesn't get caught. It's just like slides out, and it wouldn't be the case if this zipper was metal. I'm not saying that like, you know, pulling the yarn through the teeth of zipper is good for your yarn, but you know, whenever you're like doing like trouble knitting, it's like sometimes that happens, and I'm very glad that it doesn't catch my yarn. I also bought a this project bag, And this is not something that is unique in UK. I think I can get this in like websyarn.com or something. But it is a pretty cheap project bag, and I needed a project bag, so there's that. So the next store that I went to in London is a Knit with Attitude. And first of all, I wrote down the name of the neighborhood that it's in. Yes, I think it's pronounced Stoke Newton. It's super cute neighborhood in London. I took bus from central London to Stoke Newton, and like I was supposed to get off at like almost the end of Stoke Newton neighborhood to go to Knit with Attitude, the yarn store that I was going to. But I was just looking outside of the window, and like all of the cute stores were like on the shopping street. So I was like, heck, like I'm just gonna get off. And I just walked around, and there was so many stationery stores, so many cute cafes, so many like cute souvenir shop. I loved it. If you have like a day to kill in London, or like one afternoon to kill in London, and like you've done all of the touristy stuff, I highly recommend visiting Stoke Newton and just walk around and see the shops. But so while I was there, I went to a knitting store called Knit with Attitude. It was really interesting store. So half of the store was like jewelry / souvenir shop. I think it has different name too. And then back of the store was a yarn store. So I didn't buy any yarn while I was at Knit with Attitude, but I bought a few notions and project bags. So first of all, this is the project bag I got from Knit with Attitude. It is by the Smoke Shop, I think. And the lady at the store told me that this canvas bag is made in Cornwall, so it's like local production, I guess. And then they had a really good selection of cocoa knit notions. So I bought one claw clip. This is to just like tie your knitting fabric together when you're like seaming it or something. And then also I got a stitch holder, the leather code stitch holder. So this is the one from Cocoa Knits that I've been trying to like get, but I couldn't really find it in my local yarn shop. Like yarn shop in New York City. So it comes with the leather code and these needle tip, and then you put the leather code in, like it's hollow inside. So you put leather code and kind of click it, and then use it as a tools to pick your live stitch. So yeah, those are the two things that I bought. Well, three things I bought at Knit with Attitude. And then I was kind of like my own yarn crawl. So I went to another yarn store in London, which is Wild and Woolly. Yay! So I think out of three, this was my favorite yarn store. I mean, Loop London, as famous as it is, was fabulous, and I could spend a few hours just browsing through all kinds of like luxury and hand-dyed and indie yarns that they have. But and at Loop, it's just that like there's not much like a basic stuff in my opinion. Wild and Woolly had this feeling of neighborhood yarn store, and they had a good mix of hand-dyed yarn and commercial yarn. So first of all, I bought their project bag, the sweater size project bag. It comes with tiny charm. I think you can use it as a progress peak keeper, I guess. So that's one purchase. And then on their commercial yarn section, I found this yarn from West Yorkshire Spinnery. This is their illustrations base. 70% wool, Falkland wool, and 30% British alpaca. So I mentioned I was looking to make a blanket size shawl, and I was looking to make like bi-color, like a stripy or brioche one. I was thinking the same thing at the time. I ended up going to my local yarn store when I came home to New York, and then bought those two blue and gray speckled skeins. But when I bought these 6, I was fully planning on making blanket out of this. Like maybe like Excuse Me from Stephen West, or like some kind of like very squashy, brioche, blankety shawl, maybe. So I bought 6 skein of it. I ended up buying another yarn and ended up casting on like colored blanket, but these will soon be another project for no time, I think. And then Wild and Woolly has a wall of wall kitchen. So I have been seeing designers knit with wall kitchen, especially British designers knit with wall kitchen, and I wanted to buy their skein so bad. They had many of them, but this was after I bought 7 skeins of this British fiber and 3 skeins of uncommon thread, and already decided buying 6 skeins of West Yorkshire spinnery yarn. So I was like, I can't buy all of them. First of all, it doesn't fit in my bag. So I was like, I need to choose like 1 skein. So this is the one that I chose. I think colorway is Nebula, and it's on the base that has silver stellina in it. They're sock base, but with stellina. I can't wait to like use it in shawl, or maybe this will be just a sock. I don't know. It's almost like painting. I really like just watching this skein on my wall. So at the end of 2 weeks trip to London, I also went to Brighton, which is a town an hour and a half maybe train ride away from London, which is the south coast of England. So it's like edge of the bottom of England. And so I visited there for conference to attend on Friday, but I had Saturday for like my free day. So of course I walked around the city, and of course I went to yarn store and bought more yarns. So I went to a YAK, I think it stands for Yarn and Knit, in Brighton. And I did the same thing as I did for like Loop London and I guess Loop London. I asked the store lady, what's the local dye yarn, or like what's like really unique to Brighton? And the lady at the store told me the Skein Queen is their local dyer, and I bought their sock base. It's 74% superwash merino, 25% nylon, the Lighthouse colorway, because Brighton is a beach town, and this pretty much reminded me of beach. So I was like, this is a good souvenir yarn. I don't know what this is going to be, if it's going to be a sock or maybe part of the shawl, but want another souvenir yarn for my stash. And then, so I walked around Brighton with my friend Monica and Jen, and Monica picked up this yarn with West Yorkshire Spinnery Croft, which is their kind of take, I guess, on like speckled yarn that the indie dyers are doing, like kind of pretty much in trend. Now, this is not like unique to like England, I guess, like for the fact that I know I can get this exact same yarn at Downtown Yarn in Lower East Side in New York City. But I don't know, we were shopping, Monica picked up a red or like a pink purplish version of this one, and I was like, I just love this color and I want to knit a cowl out of it. So I picked up 2 skeins, and I don't know, it was not that expensive, and I don't know, I just liked it. I bought it. So that's pretty much what I bought in London and Brighton. All right, I put a yarn back in this grid wall. Before we go, I want to talk one topic, which is what's the good yarn and needle for beginners when you are starting out. So I recently went to a yarn store in New York City and witnessed a lady getting help from store lady. Now, this lady was like clearly saying, like explicitly saying, I don't know how to knit. I want to learn to knit. Help me. And the store lady was like, okay, you can only choose from this wall and only these colors, which was like Allen worsted weight and like lighter color. And she was saying that like, oh, like this pattern, you can make the scarf out of it, but it will not look like the pattern looks like, then that's fine, you will learn. And it's just like very like, I don't know, opinionated, not judgmental, but like very pressing their idea of what should the first beginner knitting should be. And I think it's same as like any other community, like certainly the programming community that I'm in, whenever somebody says, I want to learn to code, where should I start? There is this like opinionated people who's like, you have to start this and you have to learn this next and you can't do that. But I don't know. I'm in pretty much in the school of thought where you should do whatever you want to do. And if something you want to build is difficult, because you want to build it, you will learn it to build it. That's my thinking. So I don't know. I was a little put off by the way the store person was helping the person who wants to start knitting. So I tweeted this thing that I witnessed, and I was actually asked like, then what do I recommend for beginner knitter? Now, again, if you want to knit super fine yarn with black thing, or you have like sweater, like, you know, as a first project, by all means, do whatever you want to do. There's plenty of YouTube video to explain any knitting techniques that you need to learn. You can do so. However, if you need some guidance, here's my suggestion. I would start with straight needles, not the circular one, just because when you're learning to knit and then like learning the movement of the knitting, it's a lot easier to kind of like learn when those two needles are not stuck together, because like if it's a circular needle, then you have like a limited movement of, you know, the needles. So I would start with straight. In terms of materials of needles, I would recommend either bamboo or like wooden needles because it's sticky. So experienced knitters might recommend you to use like Addy or Haya, those metal needles that is very slippery, and those are for reasons. It's slippery so that the knitting kind of like flies through and you can knit really fast. But when you are first learning to knit, you don't want your stitches to drop off your needle. So sticky is actually a good thing, I think. So I would recommend going for like either bamboo or wooden straight needles. In terms of yarn, I recommend starting with like DK Allen worsted weight, a little thicker side. And I would recommend starting with lighter color, in fact. So the DK weight is like something like this that I was using in the shawl. It's just instant gratification. So like knitting like Allen weight or DK weight for like this much maybe takes you like, I don't know, less than an hour, even as a beginner knitter. But when you're making socks and knitting something like the one that I was making, like something like this gauge, knitting this much may take you like 2 hours when you're beginning. So it just in terms of like gratification of like you are learning something and you're getting to make something, the thicker yarn is nice, I think, kind of like mentally nice to see the fabric that you are creating. I recommend a lighter color because learning to knit is basically learning to see and remember which like a loop to put your needles in and then pull the yarn through. So it's a lot easier to see those loops if the yarn was lighter color as opposed to pitch black. It gets really hard to see. Like even as like experienced knitter, knitting in black yarn and doing like lace or something is really difficult. So lighter color is better, But if you want to like make black shawl or black scarf, by all means buy black yarn. I would probably I don't know, like buy cheap acrylic light color yarn to just practice. But once you get hang of it and comfortable with stitches, I would just cast on like black one, and that's no problem. In fact, like few of the projects, the beginning project that I made was black and brown, because at the time my entire wardrobe was monotone, and I don't know, that was fine. I also got questions about like, is acrylic good, or like should we start with wool? And this is completely for your preference. Acrylic tends to be cheaper and more available on yarn, the craft store like Michael's or Joann's. Wool usually more costly, like 2 to 3 times more than acrylic for like commercial yarns. And if you go for like luxury yarn with like silk or cashmere content, or like a hand dyed, indie dyed yarn, it gets, sky is the limit. But it's really your preference. I would say that using wool is nice, especially merino wool, because it's like really softer to your skin, and the end fabric I think is a lot more polished, in my opinion. By all means, like acrylic yarn, it's like some acrylic yarn, it's good, like especially like a Simply Soft or something that you can buy at a Michael's, produce like really nice face. But if you use acrylic yarn from a dollar store and like $1 a bowl or something, those fabric would look kind of cheap-ish. Well, I don't know. It's just like, even though it is the same thickness and same pattern, it's just the different fiber creates different face of the fabric. So I don't know. If the budget allows and you're fine with it, wool is nice. But maybe budget reason, or maybe you have a wool allergy, acrylic. And I would recommend, if you go down acrylic, going to higher end of acrylic, like kind of like Simply Soft, or go to like any Lion Blend yarn, and not go for the cheapest dollar store acrylic yarn. All right, that's it for this episode. I don't know, is it fun? I had fun talking about my purchase, and I am going to talk about these purchase next week. So if you liked it, please leave a comment, and I don't know, tell me what you want to know, and see you next week. Bye.